So the date of the interview is the 29th of August, and we're at Battersea Arts Centre, and this is for Black Heroes Wall of Fame or History Project. And Marsha, if you could just say your name for me, please.
Yeah, I'm Marsha De Cordova. I'm the Member of Parliament for Battersea.
And if you could just spell your name for me, that would be great.
Sure, it's Marsha, that's Marsha. De Cordova is DE space Cordova.
Great, and where were you born?
I was born in Bristol, which is in the southwest of England.
And what date were you born?
I was born on the 23rd of January.
So, Marsha, if you could tell me about your family.
Yes, of course. I am a family of 6, so I have brothers and sisters and one sister, and we all were brought up in Bristol.
And do you have a mum, a dad?
Yes, I have a mum, yes, and we all were brought up. My mum was a single parent, so we were all brought up in Bristol together in one family. Quite a close-knit community and close-knit family as well. So growing up, I spent lots of time with my cousins, and we all kind of grew up together.
How was it growing up with so many siblings?
Great, actually. It was really good. We were quite lucky in the sense that our families were very close, so we would do lots of things together as one family, be it going out on trips and outings together or just playing in the park together. It was really, really nice to be part of a big family.
What would you say was your favourite family outing?
Gosh, okay. Favourite family outings? I suppose we would go away on holidays, so they would be good fun. So if we were going down to a caravan, say in Devon, that was always good fun. If the weather was good. If the weather wasn't very good, then that would be quite challenging.
And what are some of your earliest memories of your mum?
I have a mum who's an incredibly strong and courageous woman, and she's always there for me and for all of my siblings. So I think I feel quite blessed to have a mum who's always been quite present in my life.
Do you think your mum's influenced your adult life?
In what respect, sorry?
Such as attitudes to your career?
Yeah, I suppose my mum has been a cheerleader for me, always encouraging me, and always, because I was brought up with my visual impairment, my disability, and my mum was the key person to always ensure that I wasn't treated any differently. So she treated me exactly the same as my other siblings. So whilst I learned to do things like riding a bike and all those things, I was slightly more clumsier than them, but she didn't stop me from doing things. And so those are probably some of the fondest memories I have, but also the fact that she's always encouraged me and never made me believe that there was something that I wasn't able to do, aside from driving, but that's for obvious reasons.
Could you speak more about your disability, if that's okay with you?
Oh, absolutely, no, that's absolutely fine. So I was born with a condition called nystagmus, and that's an involuntary movement of the eye. So the eyes move from left to right, right to left, and up and down. And it's something that I call my wobble because they do wobble around. And that has caused me to be severely sight impaired. And so that means I'm registered as severely sight impaired as well. And I'm quite short-sighted with it. So it's something that I was born with, and I've had it all my life. And there isn't it's incurable in that respect, so there isn't anything that can help it get better. I used to wear glasses growing up, but glasses really don't help improve what I can see. So,
how do you think other kids reacted to that in the playground or at school?
Well, children always react to things that are different, don't they? So, but you just develop very tough skin, thick skin, should I say, and you just crack on because everyone's different. That's why it's really important growing up that we ensure our education system is very inclusive. So children that are different are not segregated from other children. So all our children are mainstream educated. So important.
So do you feel your school days, your educational institutions were able to be very inclusive?
I suppose that, it's a story that I tell quite a lot, in that when I was at primary school, the head teacher of that particular primary school felt that it would probably be best to have me educated outside of mainstream education, and that was what she wanted to do. But, thanks to my mum, she ensured that she fought that school and the Department of Education to ensure that I would remain in mainstream education. Because had they taken me out and moved me into what's called a special school, I probably wouldn't have had the same level of a state education that I had in that particular school. So, but for my mum fighting, I probably wouldn't be the woman that I am today. So, education is important, but it's also important to make sure it's inclusive as well.
You might be asking,
of course,
what are your earliest school memories? What are your earliest memories of school?
Gosh, I mean, look, nursery school, I went to an incredible good nursery school. Primary school was good. So I had I must have, my memories of my time at school have been really good fun. Like I say, I wasn't really prevented from participating in all activities at school. It just meant that I needed extra help, which was what was always available to me back then. So, it was fun. And then when you go on to a secondary school, again, I went to a specific school that had a special unit for children that had a disability. So there was the additional support there. So in certain subjects like, home ec, I think they call that something else nowadays, but for cooking classes and technology classes and so forth, I always had somebody that would come in to support me in those sessions, and in sciences as well. So, I was able to participate as everyone else was with that little extra support.
What were some of the kind of games that you played, that the children played generally in the school playground, or those sorts of, some memories of what was that?
The great thing with us, we were quite outdoors, we were always outdoors playing, so that was good fun. But whether we were playing, rounders, if we played rounders, then you have to play with a really big ball so that I could see the ball. But no one minded, but that's exactly what we did. We played netball, we played touch, we would play, what's that one? Oh my gosh, what's that name of that game I used to play? I can't remember the name, but we used to go roller skating, so I used to love roller skating. And I did, my other extracurricular things were like gymnastics and trampolining, so I loved gymnastics, and I used to want to be Nadia Comaneci. But hey, didn't quite make that grade. And I still do watch a lot of gymnastics actually, because I enjoy it. I did Kung Fu for a bit. I've said trampolining and things like that. Did a bit of ballet, but that didn't work out very well either. Extracurricular stuff were good. I went to a youth club. Again, I think, spending time with my peers helped to shape who I am today as well. And we were quite lucky growing up that we had youth clubs. And that's why, again, I think, youth services and having youth clubs in our communities are so important for our young people, because I can't imagine what my childhood would have been like if we didn't have those spaces to go and just spend time with your peers.
So what sort of things did you do at the youth club?
Oh gosh, what did we do at the youth club? So we did sport, a lot of sport, filming. I did drama there, so as part of the drama group there, all different sporting activities, obviously playing computer games and stuff like that. So yeah, we did loads of different things.
And have you got a favourite memory of what happened?
God, you're making me work this hour. There are so many, but I suppose it's some of the friendships that you fostered back then. And, I loved playing netball. So as part of we were a netball team there as well. So that was good fun.
Okay, excellent. So when you played netball, was that just locally, or did you play...
Locally, goal attack. Was my position.
And defence. What ages were you when you went to this youth club? Was it for quite a long time or a short amount of time?
Yeah, it was throughout my teen years. So, from about, I'd say 12 upwards, possibly. But don't quote me, because I could, it might vary. But from 12 years upwards.
So you mentioned that you grew up in Bristol.
Yeah.
Could you talk more about the area?
Yeah, I mean, it's I grew up with my family there. I had lots of family in Bristol. I moved to London though, so I came to London I forgot how old I was when I came to London, but I moved to London because London just had so much more opportunities, and as a city itself, it was just so much more open and more of an accessible city. Whilst it still has a long way to go, it just was easy for me to really get around and be a bit more independent in London.
So where did you live in London?
Where do I live in London? I've always lived in South East and South West London, yeah.
So when you first came to London, what was the stimulus for that? What did you actually come to London?
I came to London to study, so that's why I came, and I was living in South East London when I first arrived.
Where did you study?
I studied firstly at Brunel, and then I moved out to London South Bank.
And when did you actually move to Wandsworth?
I don't live in Wandsworth.
Okay, so what's your connection with Wandsworth? Remember, this is stories that you're telling, so the audience know nothing about you, so they're learning about you. So it's not that we don't know. That's
right. Okay. So obviously as the Member of Parliament, I've been the Member of Parliament here for Battersea for just over 2 years, and for me it's been an absolute privilege and an honour to serve the people here. It's a wonderful place. Since I've lived in London, it's an area that I was always coming into, very familiar with it. We're right here in the Battersea Arts Centre. I've got great memories here, but obviously just shopping and spending time with family and friends here as well, and obviously, spent lots of time going down to Battersea Park and doing activities there, which is always great fun, as well as Clapham Common. Battersea's got some of the best green spaces. I know I'm being a bit biased here, but I think it's true.
So, can you tell us about what's your favourite one, and when do you go there, how do you get involved?
My favourite... Favourite community, I think the Arts Centre, right where we are right now, how it's just evolved as a community space is just fantastic. I mean, I know yourself, they've got the Scratch Hub, which is a brilliant working hot desk and working space for small organisations, social enterprises, and just even having space here to hot desk, because as we all know, office space can be quite expensive. So this is a great hub that they have going on here, but then all the different performances that they have here, as well as they really do a lot of work with young people. So I remember a few years back, when elections were coming up, and just encouraging young people to get themselves registered to vote, because it's really important that our young people play an active role in our democracy, because if you don't, you can't complain, for one, but secondly, it can get taken away.
Yeah. Can you tell us your story about how you became an MP? How did that pathway?
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying, I didn't grow up saying I want to be a Member of Parliament. Obviously, I suppose my kind of passion in life has always been about wanting to make a difference and being a voice to the voiceless, and that's a scripture that's in Proverbs 31. And so everything that I've done, so my career, and obviously all the stuff that I do outside of that, has always been about wanting to make a difference. And, one thing I learned throughout my working career is that, if you really want to force change and influence change, you have to be part of that change process. So I got very active in my local political party and stood in and carried out different roles and functions within that. And the opportunity came for me to stand for local government, for local council. So I put myself forward, and I was selected as a candidate. It was back in 2013, and then the following year I was elected as a local councillor. So I spent a bit of time on Lambeth Council, which is your neighbouring borough. And so it was a great learning experience for me. And then obviously the opportunity, when the snap general election was called just over 2 years ago, I decided to put myself forward for this area. And that is because it's an area that's very local to me, I'm familiar with it, I had good connections here, and so when I was selected as a candidate, I was really pleased. And we ran a fantastic campaign locally, and I was elected. on June the 9th, which was incredible. It was a wonderful achievement. But what I probably should have mentioned at the start of all of that, I participated in what's called the Operation Black Vote Shadow Councillor Scheme. So I was shadowing a councillor for a period of time. I think that must have been back in 2008 or 9, can't remember when. And that also gave me a really good insight into what it was like being a counsellor, and that then obviously helped me to make the decision as to whether I was going to do it or not, because it's something, going into politics you really have to weigh up all your options and stuff, because it is a demanding role, but it's rewarding at the same time as well. I was going through over the last 2 and a bit years, I've just been going through, reflecting on what the work we've done, and in terms of like the cases that my office and myself have handled, it's over 13,000, which is huge. Yeah, so it's rewarding, but it is hard work as well. But I love it, and I'm actually being in opposition is not great fun, but I'm actually in a place where I can try and make a difference to the people locally and for the people locally, and that's what I've been doing.
So what's your favourite memory of your role as MP?
Oh, other than being elected, other than that night. There are loads. What I love most about the job that I do is the people, and it's representing the people and spending time here in my community with the people. I have regular drop-in sessions that people can come and have a coffee and we can have a chat. Those are the moments that I really enjoy, and being able to help someone. So when people come to you with all different concerns or issues, but when you're able to actually make a difference to that person or that family's life, that makes it all worthwhile to me. But then there are obviously the other issues that people really care about. Here in Battersea, Brexit and the impact of Brexit, it's one of the top priorities for me, because the people here in Battersea, they voted overwhelmingly to remain as part of the European Union, and I've stood on this, and I will continue to fight against a Tory hard Brexit, and at this current stage and point in time, fighting against a no-deal Brexit, because that would have a devastating impact on not just the people here in Battersea, but the people across the country.
So, could you tell me what it's like for a day as an MP, a day in Marsha De Cordova's life? So if we just take today for instance, so this morning I was at St. Peter's Church, and I was spending some time with the children at their summer scheme, which is great fun. So the kids were getting down and dirty with paints and stuff. I stayed well away from the getting dirty bit, but I was really having good fun with the kids. I'm here with you guys doing this, being part of the Black Heroes Wall of Fame is absolutely wonderful, and to spend this time talking about that. I hope we go on to talk a bit more about Black history and people that I'm inspired by. But then after this, I'll grab some lunch, and then I've got another meeting that will go on till about 5, and that's around here as well. So that's what today looks like. And then, next week we go back into Parliament, so recess will end next Tuesday, and I will go in, and the first thing that I will do next Tuesday is it's Foreign and Commonwealth Office questions. So I will be going in to see if I can get selected to ask a question to the new Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab. I'm probably going to go on a question around climate change, or potentially around the issues that are happening in Palestine, or possibly Syria. Excellent.
But I should probably say, every week I have weekly surgeries across the constituency, so I will kick back off having my surgeries again, so constituents can contact me and make an appointment to come and see me. So I'll probably know those will kick off again, I think, next week as well.
Thank you. So let's go back again and now start talking about the people that inspired you. That inspired you through your childhood and life. Would you like to talk about the people who have inspired you and supported you and impacted you?
I think, one thing I'd start off by saying, when you were a young black person or woman, boy, man, child, whatever, it's always been instilled in you that you will have to work twice as hard than anybody else. And that's something that my mother always instilled in me. And then obviously with my visual impairment, I have to work even harder than everybody else. So again, but that was the ethic, that was the kind of ethos you were taught, that's what you were told you had to do. And so that's what you did do. But for me, my family are a great influence, but obviously there are the external influences when you see people that have achieved much, when you come across people that have, changed the world. World changers are people that inspire me. World changers are the people that, they don't always get the credit straight away, but actually, when you look back at what they've done, you think, wow, they made a difference. Do you know what I mean? Different movements have made a difference, and that's why, I think being the MP for this area has such a proud tradition of people that have gone before me that have made a difference. Battersea elected its first black mayor in John Archer back. That's a big thing. Do you understand? Shakraji Saklat, let me say his name right. Shakraji Saklatvala was elected here in the 1920s as the first Asian MP. That's nothing to kind of, not want to celebrate, because these are huge achievements. We've had some amazing women like Charlotte Despard, who was a suffragette, and she stood to be an MP in this area as well. So I feel quite privileged to be the representative for this area because of the great people that have gone before me. And I have missed off a few names, but there are others also. So it's world changers. Those people were world changers, and those are the people that have a great influence on you. I was recently in the States, and I was in DC, and I was down at the Lincoln Memorial, and I stood on the steps where Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. World changer, influencer, still has an impact on mine, and I'm sure on many people's lives because of what he did. And, it was all selfless sacrifice, fighting for justice and equality. And actually, that is what most of us are trying to aspire to do and to achieve. When I was 10 years old, I received a book for a gift for my birthday about Nelson Mandela. I didn't really understand all the issues around apartheid, and I read this book, and the injustice that came through, that's what opened my eyes to the apartheid system and the regime and the injustice of it. And then I began to follow his whole journey, because he was obviously still incarcerated at that time when I got the book. But it opened my eyes to the injustices that were taking place, and asking, why is this happening? And then being part of, wanting to be part of that movement for change. Do you understand? Again, a man who was a world changer was released from prison and then achieved the highest office that he could. That's sometimes, that's something that you have to look at all and say, how amazing that is. You've got to lean into these things, because he also taught us about forgiveness. Because I don't know about you, but if I was locked up for nearly 30 years, I'm not sure I'd want to be coming out and wanting to be forgiving people. The anger that there must have been. But have you ever read his book, Long Walk to Freedom? I recommend it to anybody. It might be a long book, but read that book, because you learn so much about forgiveness, and you learn so much about how you can actually move forward and letting go of all the dead weight to actually achieve your goals. Yeah, it's incredible.
So did you ever come into close contact with him, or have you been to his exhibition?
I've been to many an exhibition. I remember when this is so funny. I remember when he came to Brixton, when he first came over to London, and he came to Brixton, and I remember going down, thousands of people were there, and all I wanted to do was try and meet him. Obviously I didn't get to meet him, but I was in his presence, right? And so that was good enough. And obviously, I just commend those that fought to get his statue in Parliament Square, because to have Nelson Mandela there is a huge, huge thing for me, because, the anti-apartheid movement here in the UK was big. There were some great heroes from that period as well, who really who fought for his, who fought for him to be freed from prison, but also, stood up and were the voice for the voiceless.
I noticed that you made some reference to Proverbs. What impact, or would you like to talk about religion and its impact on your life?
Yeah, well, I'm a woman of faith, so I think as women we all read Proverbs 31 because it strengthens. There are so many scriptures and parts of Proverbs 31 that I just love, because as a woman, that just it embodies the strength and the dignity and the pride of a woman. But when I talk about being the voice for the voiceless, that was actually before it gets on to talk about the virtuous woman. So it's around verses. I can get you the verse actually, and I can tell you which verse it is. But I can get you the verse in here. But just to kind of finish off, yes, I'm a woman of faith, and I believe. And my faith is very important to me. It's very important to me. So it's open your. Well, the version I'm looking at here is open your mouth to the. Open your mouth for this. Open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of who are appointed. Open your mouth and judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor. So that was the New King James Version, but the NIV version is slightly different, which is about being the voice to the voiceless, and it's Proverbs 31:9, verse 9.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit? Going back to your childhood and living at home with your family, what would a family reunion or a Sunday lunch be like? What was the kind of atmosphere? What sort of things were happening? Well,
Sunday dinners are always a big thing, especially in a Jamaican household. I'm sure, Sunday dinners was our traditional Sunday dinner was rice and peas and chicken and vegetables. It used to be at my granddad's house, and everyone would come, which was, so it'd be crazy hectic. But it's good fun. And even when me and my family get together now, if we go away on holiday as a family or whatever, it's hectic, but it's fun, because, it's a blessing to have a family, because many people don't have siblings, or they don't have relationships with their families to have that quality time. So I just feel quite blessed. And in London, I have lots of cousins and extended family and aunts and stuff here in London as well. So, yeah.
So if you were to put yourself back, being a child at one of these Sunday lunches at your granddad's house, you'd like to tell us how you felt, what sorts of things that you'd seen here going on, what your granddad was like?
Well, my granddad loves sport, so he's dead. He's passed away now. He loved cricket. So, that if it's the season for that cricket, then that would be happening. But it was just, we would be playing, talking, just playing games. As children, we put on little performances for the adults and stuff, which was always good fun. Do you know what I mean? So it just, whilst you can't think of specific, this happened, that happened, it was the time that we had, and just spending time together was just always really good fun.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that you think we get a chance to talk about?
No, well, I think it's amazing that you guys are doing this Black Heroes Hall of Fame, because obviously 12 months ago, Black History Month wasn't really going to be celebrated in Wandsworth, so I'm really pleased that it is going to be celebrated now. And it's just a plea. So Olive Morris apparently lived on Lavender Hill. So I don't know if you're familiar with Olive Morris, yeah? Mm-hmm. Great. So we're trying to identify where colleagues were asking me, where did she live on Lavender Hill? So that's a bit of an action point for you guys because, you know, she was Battersea, born and bred, lived here in Battersea when she came to London. So it'd be really handy to find out, although she did lots of work late in Lambeth, it'd be great.
I thought she was Brixton based.
Yeah, no, she was born on Lavender Hill. Apparently, so people were trying to identify where it was because it'd be great to try and have some sort of memory for her here. So if that's something that you guys could
include,
absolutely find out a bit more about and include it in your Wall of Fame, I think that would be wonderful. And I'm assuming you are going to be obviously doing stuff around John Archer as well. Yeah. Not many boroughs or areas could, say that they've had that back then. So.
No, so we want to do more about him. We've made a film, a short documentary, 20-minute documentary about Sam King.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Which we're going to be shown as part of the.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sam was Southwark, wasn't he?
That's right. So he's back Southwark now, and also the founder of the Windrush Foundation.
Who was?
That was him, Sam King. So he travelled all the Windrush.
Oh, he travelled, and he was the founder of the.
Yeah.
I didn't realise he founded the foundation, the Windrush Foundation. Yeah. Excellent. And also, again, it's good to do that because last year we celebrated the 70th anniversary of the Empire Windrush, but obviously last year we had the Windrush scandal and how they were treating those from that generation as well. So it's really important that we never forget who we are, where we're coming from. I think it's Marcus Garvey that says this, a man who doesn't know who he is or where he's from is like a tree with no roots. And this is so true. That's why I really support the Mayor's call to ensure that London has its own museum of African American history and slavery. Sorry, not African, just of history. African history. So I need to say that bit again so you get that right. I really support the Mayor's call to have a museum here in London that recognises the enslavement of African people.
Okay. Do you think it should be about the enslavement of African people?
It should be about. I think it should also be said. I think what you would have in America. I visited the Museum of African American History and Culture, and I would like to see the same thing here because you have to. Again, like I say, you need to know. A lot of us need to know how we got here. But obviously, they have our evolution here, and celebrating the achievements that we have here as well. But obviously, knowing who we are, because there's so many different movements. You think about the history that happened, not just here in London, but Liverpool and Bristol as well have huge, large black communities that also have a history.
Yeah,
and it's how you can bring that all into one. I think Liverpool already has its own museum, doesn't it?
It has a slave
museum. But we don't want to talk just about slavery, it's the enslavement of people, but ultimately you need to know that. You need to talk about that. We need to share that so people know who they are from that. But then obviously you then travel through the time through history to present day. Because that's what the museum in Washington DC is like. You start the one place but you end up at the top, which is amazing. It's incredible.
So how did you feel when you went to visit that museum?
It was incredibly emotional. It was quite sad as well, but because how the museum, how that area is set out, it's very dark, very cramped, because it's also giving you a feeling of what it must have been like for those that were enslaved on those ships. So it was it was quite an emotional time and experience, but it was worth it because I got to actually see and read and learn so much more. And it's great when you start hearing about the abolitionists and those that fought for their freedom, achieved their freedom, and came back and helped try and free others. So it's powerful.
And I'm going to finish off with asking you about topics that I've already in Windrush and how the scandal has impacted you and the work that you did
in Parliament. Yeah. If you, I would invite you to go back to that period. I mean, when it first kicked off, I was very vocal in Parliament, raising the issue to the Home Secretary and to the Prime Minister at the time, because I obviously had a few cases of my own that I was handling here for people that were caught up in that scandal. Because, you see, that scandal was preventable and it should have never happened. And the fact that it did, in my opinion, it's a huge, huge stain and mark on the government to have allowed that to happen, because it was preventable. And, I'm hoping that we don't see another scandal with Brexit and those EU citizens that are here and have been here for decades, and when they need to apply for their settled status, that, there aren't any challenges to that happening, because it's not good enough to treat people. There were people died following the Windrush scandal. People lost their lives. People lost their homes. People lost their jobs. People lost their pensions and their social security that they had because of that scandal. It's unacceptable. And I think the compensation scheme that they have, frankly, in my opinion, could be better, because they've capped it at a certain level. But actually, if you're really going to compensate people, then you should probably look at how much did they lose? What were not just the financial losses, but, emotionally, physically, mentally, all of these things. As I say, never forget that people lost their lives because of it. And that's a scandal.
And cases are still going on?
My cases have been resolved that I had. But that's not to say that it didn't happen, It should never have happened. I think that's the important thing. It should never have happened. Yeah. And I just, I commend my colleagues that, fought, the likes of David Lammy, myself and others, Dawn Butler MP and Diane Abbott MP and others, who really stood up and just absolutely held the government to account over this. It was outrageous.
Well done. What are you looking forward to now? From this, what are your focuses? What's your vision? What's your vision for our people going forward?
Well, the priorities, my priority will always be my constituency at the moment for where I represent. And so, the priorities for me, the issues that I really focus on are obviously Brexit, because that's the most pressing issue that's facing us now. We have a huge inequality around housing here, but obviously young people, because I think, the more we invest in our young people, because they are our future and they are the ones that we need to give all that hope to. So I want to ensure that, there's better education, our schools and our education system here is working for them, but also we need to look at the exclusion rate of our young people, particularly those young people of colour. And I also want to ensure that, those children that have special education needs, that they are getting all the right support that they need in school, specifically so they can remain in mainstream education as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marsha. Is there a closing statement that you'd like to end this with?
Well, I want to just congratulate Black Heroes and you guys for the work that you're doing. I think it's incredible, and it's great that you're going into schools, because I think all children need to learn about, not just children of colour, but all children need to know about our Black heroes and our history as well. And I want to see history being taught in schools, Black history being taught in schools more.